So this video is going to help those of you who are having a go at this narrative account. Remember, this exam, you only get 4 questions. The first is explain one consequence for 4 marks, explain one consequence for 4 marks. And this is your second exam question for 8 marks. It's write a narrative account analysing the key events of something. So the first thing to do is just pay attention to that. You don't have to use all of those years to get 4 marks, so that's something in there. I'm going to verbally literally go through the answer because I think some pupils find this one quite difficult. So you need 3 paragraphs on this. So all good stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so that's the best way to spread it out. They do give you 2 bullet points to help. Sometimes they're not helpful, sometimes they are. I think if you've done your revision, you should be able to come out with your own story. So this is all about the peace process between the Israelis and Palestinians. So I'm going to verbally say it. So one way to start your story is by setting the scene and explaining exactly why by 1991, and certainly by 93, when Oslo 1 happens, why is it that the conditions were right to move towards peace? And as you can see, one of the founding reasons why is because of the ongoing intifada, the shaking off, the first intifada in the occupied territories of the Gaza Strip, and then obviously it's spreading to the West Bank. So you can start with that and explain how that puts pressure on Yasser Arafat, renouncing terror in his second United Nations speech in 1988. So those 2 events do push the Palestinians, or everybody, more towards the peace process. You've also got the Gulf War, where the United States was seen more favourably by Arab nation states because they were with Saudi Arabia and other Arab nation states to push Saddam Hussein, the dictator of Iraq, out of Kuwait very successfully. And unfortunately for Yasser Arafat, he made the fundamental mistake of siding with Saddam Hussein. And that weakened the PLO, and it lost them money because the other Arab nation states stopped providing the PLO with money. And once more, that put Arafat under pressure to move towards peace because he was losing influence. Not only that, with the United States becoming stronger, you've also got the collapse of the second superpower, the Soviet Union, the USSR. So these 2 events make the United States, it puts the United States in a far stronger position to influence Israel and the PLO to move towards peace. And the final jigsaw in the puzzle is actually, I think it's a Labour government that comes to power in Israel, led by Yitzhak Rabin. And you should know that name because he pays for this peace process with his own life, doesn't he? One consequence of Oslo is it ended with the assassination of the Israeli Prime Minister by a far-right Israeli Jew called Yigal Amir. So the coming to power of a Labour government in Israel. By the way, that's how Norway get involved in this because Oslo, the capital of Norway, they have a Labour government as well. And so there's some discussions with each other there, and that helps them broker peace. So really, your first paragraph should be setting the scene and explaining why, by 93, conditions were right for Israel, for the PLO, for the occupied territories, and for the United States to flex its diplomatic muscle and to put pressure on all sides to come together with the mediators of Norway. So that's your first paragraph. So the second paragraph, I think, should actually be on Oslo 1. And if I go to the revision guide, because I don't think this textbook's very good. Where's the revision guide? It's down here. Really, your second paragraph should focus on Oslo 1, but you could even focus on the Israel-Jordan Peace Treaty of 94. Oslo 1 might be the end of your first paragraph, actually. That might work well. And Oslo 1, the way to look at it, you can read this yourself, but it's basically the blueprint for what's to come over the next 5 years. And the key consequence of Oslo 1 is this that I'm circling now. It's the creation of the PNA, or the PA, the Palestinian National Authority. And that allowed Yasser Arafat to return from Tunis, from exile. Remember, he was in Tunis or Tripoli, He'd been kicked out of, where was it, Lebanon in 82 as part of the peace deal there with the Israeli invasion in 82. Kicked out in 1970 by King Hussein from Jordan with Black September. He's gone around a bit, isn't he, this guy? And now he's finally returning to lead the Palestinians. So there's a recognition from Israel, really, that the PLO is a legitimate kind of official voice of the PLO. And you can see it really does lead to a monumental moment here. I think if you talk to your parents, some of them will remember this. Bill Clinton with Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat shaking hands on the White House lawn with signing the first Oslo Accords. And I think the desk they used was the same for the Washington Treaty that Sadat signed in 79. So that's quite interesting. So there's your first paragraph or second paragraph. I do think it's good practice to try and bring in this little story here because it is in your specification. They did ask a question about it in the June 2025 exam. It's so small, but Jordan does play a role in this. Do you remember King Hussein? He has already renounced claim and ownership of the West Bank, I think in the late 80s, to open the space for Palestinian nationhood. And the USA do a deal with Jordan, giving Jordan lots of money over the next few years and doing economic deals, political deals, and also improving its relationship with Israel. Jordan's debts get cancelled, and it really does help both nations reduce tension in that region. So that's kind of in between both Oslos. And you could argue, if you get an exam, one consequence of this is it makes it easier for everybody to move to Oslo 2. And Oslo 2, while it did fundamentally fail for various reasons, it is a move in the right direction. You've got partial kind of sovereignty for the Palestinians of the West Bank. This is quite hotly debated. Area A is A for Arab, so that would be controlled by fully 100% controlled by the Palestinians, led by Yasser Arafat. But you can see it's such a small area of the West Bank. It's quite dubious, really, that that's going to make a difference. So areas A, B, and C of the West Bank, and the big problem here is areas C and B. You've had continued Israeli building of illegal settlements. So you can include that as one of the key reasons for failure of this process, together with extremism on both sides. And we'll look at that in a minute. So you can see here there isn't really much resolution to really the Palestinian refugees. I don't think they really do a deal on that, the right to return kind of thing. So that's a problem. But I would say the key way to end this story is to explain why Oslo 2 actually failed. And I've got it down to 3 key events here. And I know they are in a textbook, but they're, here they are. The first is an example, actually, of far-right Israeli terrorism. So an Israeli Jew called Goldstein went into a mosque in Hebron and gunned down a number of Palestinians. And in response to that, Hamas, partly in response of that actually, but Hamas have, with the PLO move to the centre to negotiation, you do get this terrorist organisation rising up, becoming more powerful, and actually trying to stop the peace process happening with their suicide bombings. And it's absolutely horrible. And then obviously the one we mentioned earlier is the key one here. And this really did shock everybody at the time. And it was incredibly sad to see Yitzhak Rabin was gunned down by Yigal Amir, who's still in jail today. And because he believed that Yitzhak Rabin was giving away land given to them by God. So you've got extremism on both sides, stopping the peace process, and ultimately meaning that Oslo 1 and 2 fails. And to this day, although Gaza is not officially occupied, it is under siege to some extent. And remember, the West Bank is still occupied, and there are still illegal Israeli settlements being built. And the more that are built, the less likely we are to see peace or a two-state solution. So really, that might be how you end it. And remember, these words here are the words on your specification. So the exam board can use any one of these. So try and do a game of bingo and tick these off as you write your narrative account to tell the story. That's a really good way of doing it. So I really hope that helps you answer what is actually a very tricky exam question. And I don't think the textbook's very good at this. And all you have is this 2-page thing here. But hopefully you can use this video, rewind, pause, etc. and type up your answer.